Hi everyone, wait 1 second, we need your help here at FMSCOUT. As you can see on screen, we've noticed that a good portion of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed, and even if just a small group of these people hit the subscribe button, it would make a massive difference to our subscriber numbers. So if you like these videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button, you've got nothing to lose. But with that being said, let's get into what you're here for and get right into the video. Whether it be shooting, passing, vision, technique, tackling, whatever it may be, so many times as Football Manager players focus on a few attributes that we always look at, always focus down in on, and we don't take too much interest in the other attributes that a player may have. But so many times these attributes are the ones that are affecting your player's game the most. So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys my top 5 most important attributes that you might not focus on in your Football Manager saves. So these are going to be 5 that you probably won't usually think about, but are actually having a massive weighting in how your players perform on the pitch. I'm Jake for FMSCOUT. If you do enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more. It really does help in supporting the channel if you do any of them things. Comment down below which attribute you find most important in your saves, and if you want to check out me and my channel, you can find that linked in the description, where we've got a Wolfsburg series going on. As you can see in this save here, this is our Wolfsburg save, and this is what we're going to use for our demonstration, our example today. So with that being said, let's get right into it. No particular order, let's look at attribute number 1. Okay, so the first attribute we're going to be focusing in on is a mental attribute, and that is decision making. Now this attribute has a massive impact mainly on defenders, and also, you might not consider this, but goalkeepers too. Now the Football Manager definition of decision making is the player's ability to make the right choice both with and without the ball. But most of the time, and I do understand it, we focus in on the technicals and the physicals, the one that look the nicest. You know, if you have a centre back here in Maxence Lacroix, you're going to focus in on his physicals. Wow, he's super quick, he's strong, he's good in the air. This is a brilliant player, he can tackle, he's got technique, he can pass, he can mark. But if this player had like 9 decision making, you're really going to see that impact on the pitch. They might have all these great attributes, but if they don't know when is the right time to use them and not use them, it is going to have a massive detriment in their game. So it's always something you should focus in on. There's a big bunch of mentals up here that so often people overlook. But there's a reason when I do my Wonderkids Superstar episodes, whether it be a striker or a defender, I always do like to focus on decision making amongst many others. If you do want to train decision making in your players, you can have it as an additional focus. If it's a defender, like you're looking at, defensive positioning does train this attribute amongst many others. And if it's an attacker where you want to improve decision making, then final third will be the one to go. As a side note, we are going to have a video on the channel fairly soon showing the rankings of each attribute by position. So this video will focus on the most important attributes for a centre-back, striker, goalkeeper, whatever it might be, using actual tests and data from the editor to find out what is actually the most important. But I can tell you decision making is one that does play a huge role, and it is the same in goalkeepers too. So often with goalkeepers, we focus in on the goalkeeping attributes, which of course you should definitely do, but people tend to just not look at the physicals or the mentals with a goalkeeper. But our testing, and you'll find out more about this in that video I mentioned, has shown decision making is near enough as important as reflexes, handling, whatever it might be. So decision making, do keep it in mind when you're assigning a player, or if you have a player in your squad when deciding what role you're going to use them in. That's attribute number 1. Now let's move on to attribute number 2. So for the second attribute, we're going to be using the example of Karim Adeyemi. This guy in my Wolfsburg team scores goal after goal, and he is a top draw player, but I have seen technically better players than him in Football Manager who don't perform as well. Is it the fact that he's super quick? Yes, that really does help him. Is it his dribbling and his finishing? Yes, that helps him a hell of a lot. But the attribute that we're going to focus on, that you might look at here and not notice too much, is his off the ball. Now, off the ball for a striker, or an attacker should I say, is super important. As you can see here, it decides a player's ability on how they're going to make runs and movements off the ball to disrupt the defence and cause goals. Now, Adeyemi is one of the best at this. If I was to look at a highlight package of every goal that I've seen, because of that off the ball, it's the way he just makes a run off, and that tandems so nicely with his physical attributes. If he didn't have this off the ball, he would not be making the movements that he does. He still scores goals, don't get me wrong, but it's the mixture of all these attributes together that really make him such a key player for us. Yes, he's quick, but that quickness wouldn't matter if he was running into the wrong channels, into the wrong space. But Adeyemi is always pulling off a defender, finding space, a long ball over the top, he runs onto it every time, and because of his starting position, due to his off-the-ball runs, he always ends up getting a goal or a one-on-one opportunity at the very least. So that's why I always like to focus in on this one. Again, from our testing, we found that off the ball is super important, as important for a striker or a winger as their dribbling, first touch, and it's nearly as important as their finishing. So it's definitely something that you should keep an eye on in your players. If you think, why isn't my striker scoring enough goals? That might be something you need to work on, that off the ball attribute. So that's attribute number 2, and you know where we're going with this one. Attribute number 3 coming up. Okay, so attribute number 3, don't forget to like the video if you are enjoying or finding this useful, but the third attribute that we're looking at here that not many of you think about enough, it's one that probably in this list is the most thought about, if that makes sense, but it's still one that not enough people are considering, and that is strength. Now, strength, as you can guess, is how strong a player is and how that's going to disrupt a defender. This is important at so many levels in Football Manager, whether it be as a striker or a defender in the top divisions or the higher divisions, but strength in particular makes a huge difference if you are playing lower league football, or even up to about, if you're using the English divisions as an example, up to about the Championship. Strength is arguably one of your most important attributes, as are most of the physicals. That's the thing that really gets you by in the lower league. But if you have a strong player in the lower leagues, you will really see the difference. It makes that player super effective in the match engine. I was having a discussion with Tucker Jobs, who also makes videos here on FMSCOUT, and he said he had a striker who was super strong and good in the air. Now this player took his lower league team all the way to the Championship, being the top scorer in every division, and by rights he shouldn't have been able to do that. He didn't have the attributes that you'd look at and go, wow, this is a top draw player. But because he had that strength, it made him so vital in the match engine. In the testing that I've mentioned a few times now, strength was one of the most important attributes along every single position, whether it be a defensive midfielder, a striker, whatever it may be. Strength comes into play on so many levels, and it's just super important to have in your players. One thing I am going to quickly mention that doesn't count towards the 5 that I'm doing in this video is consistency and important matches. I mentioned this in a previous video. If you want to check that out, make sure you do so. It was in the Football Manager myths and misconceptions video, which should only be a few videos back, but do check that out to see why they are so important. But just all I'm saying, take it into account when you sign in a player, read the coach report, see if they have consistency or big matches at a high level. If they do, great. If it's not on there, that's probably fine. But if you actually see red consistency or red important matches, it might be worth giving that player a miss. Okay, attribute number 4 now, and this one doesn't have too much of an impact on what your player does on a pitch, but it is worth considering when making a sign-in, particularly if you're thinking about the long term of your guys' clubs, and that is natural fitness. Now, natural fitness, by definition in Football Manager, is the ability of a player to stay fit pretty much over the course of their career. So the higher your natural fitness, in theory, the more likely they are not only to not get tired between matches, but how long they're going to play on into their career. A real life example of this would be Ibrahimovic, or in Football Manager, Cristiano Ronaldo has 20 natural fitness, and that's the reason why in Football Manager he hasn't retired despite the fact that he's now 38 years old, and it's why he can still contribute at a pretty decent level, because what it also does is it determines how quickly these physical attributes are going to fall when he gets old. If he had 5 natural fitness here and he happened to be playing at 38, I can assure you that these physicals would have deteriorated at a super fast rate. However, because of his high natural fitness, he's a 38-year-old who still has really good physical attributes for a player of his age. So always keep that into account. You might notice that there's a player in your team who always gets tired after a match and doesn't seem to recover and needs more rests. There's a good chance they don't have good natural fitness. And like I say, it's just good to have in the long run anyway if you're trying to develop a player who's going to be able to stick around at the club for a long time, or if you sign in an older player, how long they're actually going to be of use to your guys' sides. Okay, coming up to the last attribute in this video. If you do enjoy what you're seeing here with this Wolfsburg team and you want to actually see how it plays, feel free to come check out my channel, links in the description. I'd really appreciate it. But the one that we're talking about finally is Bravery. This is another one that people don't seem to look at too much in this bunch up here that I mentioned earlier that a lot of people seem to avoid. But Bravery at a high level can cause really big impact in terms of how a player plays on the pitch, and can grab you a few goals a season or stop a few goals going in a season just from a player having a high bravery level. Now, this isn't an attribute that is necessarily super important, but it really can help you make a difference in a big game. The Football Manager description of bravery might throw you off in thinking, oh, this means that my player's more likely to put himself in situations that get him injured. But whilst that may be slightly true, it doesn't have too much of an impact really, I don't think. But what bravery will help with is your player getting up in the air and winning an aerial challenge, whether it be heading a corner in or heading a corner away. It determines how well that player is going to jump in and stop a goal in the final few seconds of a match. It does have a big impact in crucial moments, I would say, Bravery, and it's something that not a lot of people do focus on. Another area where Bravery comes into play is your goalkeeper. You really do want your goalkeeper to have a high Bravery attribute. It really does affect how a player does on the pitch, so always keep that in mind. So that was the 5th attribute that we've looked at in the video. My top 5, the ones I think are important but not a lot of people focus on. I'm not saying these are more important than your finishings and your headings and whatever it might be, but they're things that people don't focus on but have a huge weighting in your guy's game. If I was to name a couple others I think have a great impact, I would say teamwork, because teamwork, if you didn't know, determines how well a player is actually going to follow your tactical instructions. So if you're doing a complex tactic with loads of individual player instructions, you want that player to have good teamwork, to be able to follow it and stick to that tactical style that you want. Work rate, again, is another one that I think is super important if you're looking to play a high octane, high intensity football style. So always keep an eye on them. Particularly, I suppose, it's the mentals that people don't focus on enough. A lot of people will just look at determination and say, yeah, he's got good determination, that's fine, he'll develop. But some of these mentals do have a massive impact. Composure is one that I didn't talk about in this video, but now I'm looking at it, I want to. But composure, particularly in a forward player, a striker, is super important. A player might have great shooting and good dribbling, but if he's not composed in front of goal, those attributes aren't going to matter so much, but combine them both together and you get perfect strikers. So composure is always something to keep an eye on as well. I think I'm pretty much done. I don't need to go into every single attribute, which is what this video is almost about to turn into. But hopefully you have enjoyed it. Just a quick, simple video to try and get you to focus on a few more things when looking at your players in Football Manager. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.